via the net.
Recording has started.
And the recording has started. And the folks in the room, so again, really appreciate this, and appreciate the Foundation for Healthy Kentucky for making the facility and the technology available, despite my own technological handicaps. Can you all hear me fine on the webinar? Okay. So as Alexa said, we will use a chat function for questions and answers for the folks at home. So briefly, the purpose of today is we have this opportunity in Kentucky because of this new USDA program called the Food Insecurity Nutrition Incentive Program. FINI, that's the acronym that we're going to just wear out today. And I didn't even know that it was in the Farm Bill. I think it slid in on a lot of our radar. But thankfully to Fair Food Network, and Noah Fulmer is here today from them, made us aware of the opportunity. Yes, and the linkages come right back to Kentucky. So a number of Kentucky markets actually reached out to Fair Food, and they in turn came back to us because so many markets are part of CFA's Farmers Market Support Program. So the purpose of today is to just educate as many folks in the state about this opportunity, and then we'll figure out the best way to take advantage of that. We have invited to today all kinds of stakeholders. So those, obviously, farmers markets, those who are funders or potential funders because there's a match required, other state agencies who are supporting these efforts, and organizations who could play a collaborative role, and Noah will describe that later. So just briefly, the agenda after I stop blabbering. And I'll do a short few slides here about the state of food access in Kentucky. Then we're going to hear from two farmers markets in Kentucky, Jackson Rowlett from Community Farmers Market in Bowling Green, and Valerie Horn from the Letcher County Farmers Market in Whitesburg. And I think they are kind of great representations of the kind of state of the market situation in Kentucky. One is urban, has been somewhat established. The other is very rural and is really new. And I think both of them have done admirable jobs this year with food access, and I think it's an integral part of their markets. Then we want to have some questions and answers from folks for Jackson and Valerie about their experiences. And then I'm going to turn it over to Noah, who's going to talk about the work that Fair Food has done in Michigan and other places, including some discussion about what does it take to do a double buck program. Yeah, I'm not on a Friday afternoon. We want to take a break after that and then come back, and Noah's going to really kind of lead us through what the FINI grant is all about, what its intention is, the various levels of application, questions and answers around that, and then have some discussion about how do we take advantage of it, what makes sense for in Kentucky for us to take advantage of this opportunity. And hopefully at the end of today we'll have at least some good idea of next steps in Kentucky, and it may be a number of steps by a number of us, but I think we'll get some direction. I know that on CFA's part, we need some direction because we will be putting in an application, but we want to help figure that out. So I'm just going to use two hands for technology and go quickly through this some PowerPoint, I think. Yeah. So from the Partnership for Fit Kentucky, a slide from some of their recent presentation just about in Kentucky. I mean, Kentucky is an ag state. We are still relatively half urban and half rural these days. Great ag heritage. Um, in the situation, and I think these are 2013 numbers. There were 162 farmers markets last year. I think there may be more this year. Um, but the number of markets who are able to accept SNAP, WIC, and senior farmers markets are pretty low, especially around SNAP. Um, and yet, we have in this state a huge need, and we have a lot of residents. I think it's in here in as many as in many rural Kentucky communities, 25% of the population is participating in one or all of the 14 federal food and nutrition programs in Kentucky. You know, in many counties it's much higher. I believe in Letcher County it's like 43% of the population is participating in that. But I think the 25 is an average, which means there is some much higher out there, which means a lot of impact. The other thing I wanted to mention is it is in a state that is highly agriculture and we do a really good job farming. Hunger is a problem in our state. Tamara Sandberg with the Kentucky Association of Food Banks is doing a great job. And so in one of her presentations, I hope I got these numbers right, it's 750,000 or 750,000 Kentuckians are hungry. 1 in 4 Kentucky kids are not sure of where their next meal is coming. And I find that kind of appalling coming from a farming background that was such a strong ag industry in this state that we have people going hungry. So just these are some quick things about some barriers that we are finding to access to at farmers markets. A lot of it is around knowledge, misconceptions, that kind of thing about it. And the fact that we have gotten over a couple generations removed from how do you cook, right? I mean, and how do you cook raw food or real food, right? Something that hasn't been processed. That is a big problem. This perception that farmers markets are expensive. And so Rural Scale out of Southwest Virginia actually did a study and surveys of rural farmers markets and supermarkets. And the fact that they said that in many cases the farmers markets were actually cheaper. The challenge is comparing apples to apples or in some cases a tomato to a tomato, right? Because the tomato you find in a large retailer is not the same tomato you find in a farmer's market, right? They're kind of totally from different worlds, including taste, nutrition, freshness, and all that. So trying to compare the price of the large retail tomato with a farmer's market tomato is not very helpful. We do have some beliefs, right? We have some, for those of you who are working in the markets, I think you see this, right? That you have folks, farmers who one, I don't think understand what these food and nutrition programs are about, who they're for, and how do they participate in them. And then we have increasingly in Kentucky immigrant and refugee populations. I mean, people whose first language is not English, and that can be a challenge in communication. But then they're also looking for the foods like you and I that feel at home, right? That makes them feel comfortable. And so part of us, in Kentucky is understanding that there's a huge market for that kind of stuff. I mean, I know several Latino farmers who are doing pretty well growing specialty crops that they are marketing directly to the Latino markets in Lexington, for instance. Practices and policies. For Community Farm Alliance, we do see farmers markets as one of these great entry points for beginning farmers. That they can come in and they can learn how to market. They can grow their own production along with that market. But with that comes some of these other things. I mean, for you, again, who are working directly with the markets, sometimes it has varied from year to year. Where is the market location? And if you change that market location, even from one year to the next, or if you've been in one location for 2 years and you change it, man, it can really kill you, right? Because people are coming back and looking for you and you're not there. And then they have to go hunt, or worst case, they don't hunt, right, for you. In some cases, transportation is a problem, and that's both, urban and rural issues around transportation. And then it's a bit of a chicken and egg, right? Farmers who come to the market, bring their products, and then they don't sell, or they don't sell enough. Or customers who come to the market and there's not enough product or not enough variety, right? And how do we have to work together over a period of time to bring those two into balance? And then last is policies, and there's a lot of policies, both at the state and federal, in some cases at the local level. And it's getting an understanding of how those policies are interrelated, and what we can do to educate both consumers and farmers around these policies. And if we need to, let's change the policies, right? So CFA started the Farmers Market Support Program last year as a pilot. Even though we've been working to support farmers markets for 25 years, it was only last year that we came up with a kind of coordinated design program of support, because we really saw the need in rural farmers markets, in rural counties especially in Eastern Kentucky, that in many places didn't even have a single farmers market. So last year was a pilot. These are the things that we provided through that pilot last year, around trainings and technical assistance, and then these capital support programs for farmers, market managers, and then for double dollars. That's what we called it for SNAP, WIC, and seniors. These are the markets that were part of it, and we didn't do it alone. All these folks at the bottom are the ones who partnered with CFA to make all this happen. So I wanted to talk about the double dollar program that we had last year. These are just some bullet points around it. I was amazed to look when I saw these, the study by Moody's, that this 1.73 multiplier effect is really high. So, which means it's a good investment of funds into the community, and it's a really good investment of funds just from an economic sense, of our federal dollars back into the community. So I have results from these 4 markets so far, and you can see from them that not every market was ended up able to take SNAP. We know that seniors that were already maxing out the seniors vouchers in the state, we could use more, and that is not determined by us. That is at the federal government. Although I'm happy to say I think Letcher is now prepared to take it next year. And so the thing that I thought most interesting was at the far right. And so these numbers represent not only the federal funds, but also the double dollar funds. But to look and say, that like Letcher County, 16% of their sales came from these programs, right? Metcalf, 41%, right? But even Floyd and Berea, I think for Letcher and Metcalf, this was their first year. For Floyd County and Berea, this is their second year. But to add that much in sales, right, it can be pretty significant. In some ways, why wouldn't you do it? If you know that you can just add sales, at least 10% next year by participating in these programs, it just makes, economic sense. And lastly, this is the last slide. So, again, for us, the folks that really helped us make this happen, Kentucky Department of Public Health and WellCare really provided the funds to make this happen. And the one organization that I don't know how I missed on there, BB&T Bank, right? Marlo Long of BB&T actually helped launch this thing, and to give some money, and we just then were able to bring in these other partners. And so the three foundations there really helped CFA with other support, but the other folks just gave us some money. That's it for what I had to say. So that's a bit of an introduction, but I'd like Jackson and Valerie, and you all can't really see them, but I don't know that that matters. So I'll turn it over. We'll start with Valerie, and she can tell us about the experience in Letcher County.
Right here. Good afternoon, and glad to be here. Thank you, Martin, and hello to those who are listening out there. Um, I had expected that I would follow Jackson, but and had already said now we're going to go to the other end of the state, so we'll just start at the southeastern end of the state. I am Valerie Horn, co-market chair in Letcher County, and also work with Community Farm Alliance and the Apple Tree Project. The farmers market, this was our second year to be open in Letcher County, and we were very, very happy to be a part of the farmers market support program. It had a huge impact on our market. One of the biggest impacts is we were able to have a dedicated market manager. In our case, we had co-managers. Also, one of the nice things about that was getting to meet Bev at one of their trainings in the WIC program. And as Martin described about why wouldn't you, I think our county, we did not take full advantage of the WIC program. I'd love to have said 100%. But the way I described it to the farmers is it's just money. Like we could see the health department from our farmers market. And I say there's just money sitting down there. It's just paper money that turns into real money, and it's there for us. And then we also have the benefit of CFA and the Double Dollars program and those who supported that. So we've got to make that happen. We've brainstormed about how we can do a better job of getting that out to our community and partnering more strongly with our health department. Want to find out from some of the other programs that were more successful in getting those redeemed about that, but we were still very happy with it this year at our market. Our market was open from first Saturday in June to the first Saturday in October. We probably had at high best day 12 growers. Average days really maybe 4 or 5 growers. I was happy with the numbers that were up there with our WIC redemption. But we want to move more for that, and we also want to move for senior vouchers. I've got to keep a call in and try to keep in touch with Jessica on that, and keep Letcher County's name at the top of the list. And if any of you have influence on those senior vouchers for all the markets, not just Letcher County, but I understand they have a much higher redemption rate, and we know that there are seniors and elderly in our communities that need those and would use those, but you all know that. So how it worked at our market was pretty simple. We have tents and tables, not a formal structure yet. And we're all there. I sometimes say there are advantages and disadvantages of being in a small community, and it works to our advantage in this way. All the farmers know each other, work together. The training happened there. Bev came in and did a good job with that training. So when our participants came in with their vouchers, the WIC vouchers, usually a market manager would just go over and help. It seemed our growers needed a little assurance about what they were doing and the process for that. And then at the end of the day, they just bring their checks over, and we were able to write them a check for double that amount. Seemed like there was we did not notice any discomfort with people who were using their checks. Everybody seemed happy, very happy and pleased to have the opportunity to get those fresh vegetables. And another goal talk about with Letcher County is Letcher County, like Martin said, 46% of the population would be eligible for some of these programs, and is to make our market not be just it's nice to have those elite folks walk through and get their attention and get their money, but what's even nicer is to have everybody in the community and everybody feel like it's their market and that their time there matters just as much as everyone's equal there. So we also worked through CFA and getting the summer feeding program in Letcher County, and partnered with Letcher County Schools to get that developed. So anyone under 18 would be able to come and eat free meals at the farmers market. And we'd purchase those on Saturday mornings from the growers, ingredients that they had on site. School system worked with us to, they provided a cook for that, community provided a trailer for that, and then they'd go in, we'd be able to serve that to kids under 18 free and very low cost for adults, like $1.50 for a burrito and a smoothie. On our highest day, we had 73 children that we fed free through that. And that's a pretty big number for Letcher County and our program. One way to sort of put that in perspective, the farmers market is at the end of a walking track, and at the other end is the housing authority with 112 residents or 112 homes. And like on some of the days that the school took their summer feeding program there, maybe 4 were picked up. So we had 73 of our meals picked up on the other end on Saturday morning. And it turned into a good day for families as by the end of the season, pretty easy to identify who was there, and you could see not just maybe one member of the family coming for shopping at the farmer's market, but the whole family would come. And there was a delay in getting your meal from the summer feeding, so someone would take the kids straight to the summer feeding booth while another adult shopped, or they'd get their order in and then go about and doing their shopping there with that. So that is that was a big deal for us. And when that finished, that finished the end of July, because we go back to school in Letcher County August 1st. So we didn't want to let that summer feeding program end, and just decided to go ahead and do it that Saturday. But we're fortunate that Mountain Comprehensive Health Clinic stepped up that Saturday, and they came up and said they would sponsor the feeding program for the rest of our market. So we were able to have that throughout the market season and help with that. Challenges, as I said, we're a small community. Our growers are usually are always our friends, and so we have lots of conversations about what is happening. And they were very, very happy to be on board with that. The biggest challenge we had was with reimbursing the WIC vouchers. It was new to our banks. And breakdown there. So I advise if anyone is listening or out there that if you're going to implement the WIC program, take a first step and you be the first line of contact with the bank to let them know that these they are checks, but they still do look different. So introduce the bank to that, so there is no awkwardness for employee at the bank, or no discomfort and embarrassment for the grower. It may not be a problem anywhere else, but it actually was at a few banks in our community. But some good things came out of that. Like one of the growers was a husband and wife, and They tried one day and it didn't happen. So I said, okay, well, I'll go back with you tomorrow and we'll make it happen. And I sat in the office with him for about an hour and it didn't happen. But but at the during that conversation, the wife was a nurse, is a nurse, and she just tell how strongly she felt about that. Most everybody in Eastern Kentucky, if you are not living hard times yourself, you either have lived them or you've got family who is living. So it's pretty easy to identify with folks in that situation. But she said, and they had a pretty good stack of them, maybe $200 or $300 that day. And she said, you should take these. You need to take these. And Bev actually called in too, and it still didn't happen that day, but it did. But what she said plainly to the bank was, I don't care if I tear these up, if we throw these in the trash, I'm going to get this food to these people. So they are strongly committed to getting these vegetables and this choice of food out to folks in our community, and it's nice to see that and have that reinforced. Um, Challenges as far as SNAP goes. It took us a little longer and we got sidetracked, but by the end of the season, we have our material, our phone, and are ready to do that. We didn't push it it was only like the last two Saturdays that we were open, and we didn't really push it, partly because we weren't sure we knew what we were doing, and thought we'll just start fresh at the beginning of next year, and we are in that spot and have that part behind us and are ready to begin with that. And yes, Noah. Very excited, very excited. I'm sorry. He asked what the customer's response was. They were happy to have them, and a lot of people bought their vegetables like they would buy enough to even go home and can. Maybe they bought 30 a bushel of green beans. And so we would learn later that they had not only used them as fresh green beans at that time, but had preserved and put them away to use later after that. Yes, ma'am. Glad to. Um, that is if your WIC provided $20 in checks for customers who came, and they were actually in increments of $4 checks that could have been spent during the season. That's great, and that is actually in addition to any WIC benefits that they're already receiving. So it doesn't come out of baby formula or any other things like that. It's an addition to. But to make that $20 go further through the efforts that Martin was talking about with Community Farm Alliance and the providers there, it doubled. So $20 became $40. So if a customer came up and they wanted to buy $8 worth of green beans, they only had to use $4 worth of their checks. The, yes. But actually, in the money, if I can go ahead, the money would come to the farmers market. So the farmers market at the end of the day on Saturday would write the check to the grower. So like a customer would give the $4 check for the $8 worth of green beans, and then they take $8 away, and then at the end of the day, the grower brings the $4 check, and we match that.
Well, that's largely what we're here to talk about. I mean, yeah, no, that's okay. Last year we did a 3-to-1 match. So we provided up to $1,500, provided each market came up with $500, and they all did from various sources. Some of the markets, the farmers actually chipped in the money. Some markets, the local government. Some markets, local churches. But they were all, did that. So yeah, and so partly a lot of today is like what we'll be trying to do this coming year. Jackson.
Hey everybody, can everybody hear me? I can't hear myself over myself, and I want to make sure that everybody at home can pick me up. Um, I'm going to try to talk about a lot because I wear several different hats in this local food system, local food access piece that's going on in South Central Kentucky. So if I start to run over time, somebody tap their wrist and let me know that we need to get moving. Um, So first, I'm going to talk. I was the Farmers Market Support Program Fellow over the past 6 months, helping pilot this Farmers Market Support Program, trying to lay the foundation and the groundwork for the markets to be able to function with these funds and in this capacity. So, and it's been great. It turned out as good, if not better, than I had hoped. Some of the things I wanted to comment on earlier about the numbers and why the numbers for the other participating markets sort of look that way is like Valerie said, Letcher did not accept SNAP or senior. So that 7% sales increase was just WIC Farmers Market Program and double dollars. Can we pull that back up? Yeah, so well, no, 16%. 16% just came from WIC. So think about that in the context of next year when they start accepting SNAP and hopefully senior nutrition benefits as well. The great thing about senior nutrition benefits, Jess was here to attest to it, they turn those in, they use those. And if there's one market in that town that accept those, that's huge. That's a huge marketing potential for that market, for those farmers. Not to mention it's just a great service for seniors in that community. I talk a lot about the economic benefits of these programs, and I like to preface that by saying it's just the right thing to do. Before the numbers, you just need to do these things. You know, this is becoming part of it. And another thing with Metcalfe County, you see their SNAP sales are $34, and they accepted SNAP for I think 2 weeks, maybe. But you know the outpouring of support for their WIC and Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program added another 41%. So think you add SNAP on top of that. Next year it could be another 41% from that year because I know that's a county with extremely high rates of residents on using SNAP benefits. Yeah, it's a very very small market. We worked a lot with them over the summer to obtain a new location and to access community partners to help do the matching program for the matching portion of the double dollars incentive program. Yeah, think about these numbers in the context of 5 farmers even. That's huge. You know, that this isn't a market with, you know, like my own with 50 vendors, you know, 30 of them farmers. This is 5 farmers, and that's, you know, plus $3,000. So that's a huge step for them. And just going down some of the, there's a previous slide with beliefs and practices and policies. If you could just point me back to that one. Yeah, so going over some of this stuff, what I've heard in the context of my own market, you know, people do think it's more expensive. We took to demonstrate that it's not more expensive in our market, we took a CSA basket from a local farmer and compared that as best we could, apples to apples, as they say, or tomatoes to tomatoes, to Kroger, Meijer, and Walmart. And the difference, even when you're doing $3 a pound tomatoes to 99-cent a pound tomatoes, there were a lot of other items that really pulled the margin the other way. Wound up within $5 out of an $80 basket, wound up within $5 of that margin. So it's really, if you're smart about it, it's not more expensive. But another thing we really focused on at my market, I guess I'm shifting into community farmers market now. People are unsure about how to use these products, and so we do a lot of work educationally to try and teach people to have cooking demonstrations as often as we can to try and show them how to use these vegetables. Again, large immigrant population that we serve there, first and second generation, so they need help making these foods more approachable, especially when you get into second and third generations who have not been used to cooking those raw foods, providing that education. And then some of the beliefs. This top one in particular, older farmers don't believe in the SNAP program, and I think Martin's right. They may not understand the mechanics. They may not understand where the program began or what it's there to serve. What I heard in the beginning of the inception of our SNAP and Double Dollars program is, well, I don't want that here. But then very quickly they realized that they were going across the street to Kroger to spend those same dollars on farmers that are not from South Central Kentucky, on food that on an economy that exits South Central Kentucky. So very quickly they turn that around when they see the economic impact of those dollars recirculating in our market instead of at other stores. So that was how we turned that one around real quick. And as for practices and policies, yeah, so it's we've seen a lot of new farm enterprises come to our market precisely because of our community outreach efforts. They identify with a lot of the things that our outreach programs serve. A lot of the people that we serve and the things that we do. And it's going to increase their sales as well. Poor transportation to the market was another one, and I'm glad I see somebody from WellCare here in the room. They provided a lot of support for our mobile market where we actually took the fresh produce out into these communities that are more or less food deserts of Bowling Green, but then you go to rural communities and they have the exact same issue. Just because it's not an urban center does not mean that there is not access to fresh food because of transportation. So trying to find a lot of creative ways around those barriers. Logistical barriers to accepting SNAP benefits is another big one. And what CFA would like to demonstrate is that when you start accepting SNAP benefits and instituting Double Dollars programs, you go back to Metcalfe County with an increase of 41% of their sales. Now they can afford a market manager that can in turn do some of these outreach efforts, get funding for these Double Dollar incentive programs, administer SNAP and tokens, and do the redemption at the end of the day. So it's sort of a chicken and an egg. So CFA is providing the egg. They're providing that cash match not only for the Double Dollar incentives, but for the market manager as well to do a lot of the extra market work. And then it all comes down to, change in food policy and interpretation, just in general. How do we see this happen more across the state for everyone? And a lot of the tools are in place. It's just putting those tools at work together and putting those pieces together. So a little bit about how CFM did it, and we did it sort of outside of the capital support of CFA. But it's good to hear two different stories about how this can happen. And we really hope that CFA can provide this opportunity for even more markets. Our market's fortunate. We're in Bowling Green, Kentucky, so we have Western Kentucky University and a lot of big community partners right there. So we're really fortunate in that regard, and I think that contributed a lot to the success. So last August, I guess that's 15 months ago, we started accepting SNAP benefits and instituted our own Double Dollars program. That was in a major way funded by partnerships that we made in the community on our own. And part of the beauty that I think of CFA's program is that they do match 3-to-1 those funds. So at least they did for the pilot program. That market has to access parts of its community to front that other $1 for the 3 from CFA. They have to start creating community partnerships, and that's how these programs are going to be sustainable in the long term. We've made community partners that have seen the effects and the success of our programs and are coming back to us saying, how can we help next year? How can we make this program better? The farmers market goes from just as much a farmers market, but also just as much an asset to the community that's servicing a need. And I think that's a story that's a little underplayed when we start talking about the economics and sustainability of these programs. It creates a lot of community support for that market. So that's how we funded our Double Dollars program, and I can tell you that over the course of the past 15 months, we have created $25,000 of wealth for our market. To be completely transparent, I'm paid out of a grant that's in conjunction with Western Kentucky University. I've only been paid approximately $9,000 over the course of that 15 months. So I have almost tripled my return. And again, part of this cost sharing for a market manager is maximizing and doubling and tripling that return, hopefully in the long run. We also provide Double Dollars for WIC and senior. Again, we do it exactly the way Val was describing. They use their vouchers with approved vendors at the market. Those vouchers are doubled at the point of sale. They take the vouchers to me at the end of the day, and we match that with a check. It's a really simple process. Once everybody really gets the hang of it, it only takes a couple of weeks for vendors to catch on. It seems very complex on paper, but in reality, it's not. And then also, towards the end of last year, but really this year, from April until just past the end of October, we piloted our first mobile market season. Again, this is where WellCare played a huge role, and that came from a community partnership. One of their community associates, Charlie, is really active in our local food scene, I guess you could say. She attends a lot of meetings about how local food can be an access point for a lot of low-income families to better health and better nutrition. So she was attending some of these meetings and said, we would like to contribute to this project that you're doing, capital support, because that's something that is very much needed for this project. So they provided the capital support and worked with us on some goals that we would hope to achieve over the summer. We're working on the report right now, and it all looks really well. So we went out to 3 locations across Bowling Green, Kentucky that are considered food deserts. We essentially loaded up the bus with product from our farmers and took it into these communities and set up a pop-up farmers market. And we also sort of split it half and half. We also did a CSA for really invested community members who wanted to see this happen. They would come to us and want this program to grow, so we added a CSA for those that were willing to come to every mobile market visit in their location and pick up their basket of fresh fruits and vegetables. In some places that did really well, in some places not so much. So it's about how do we assess the needs of each of those individual communities and how do we show up appropriately. But we're working on that for next year, and I'm really excited about the prospects for it. Does anybody have, I guess, any questions for Val? Sure.
Repeat the question. So the question is, can individual farms accept vouchers from WIC, SNAP, and seniors, or only through a farmer's market environment?
So the question is in particular about vouchers. So far as I know, those vouchers have to be redeemed at a farmer's market. However, SNAP benefits, if your primary market does not accept SNAP benefits, and I believe this is still the case, you can apply for the same SNAP program that these farmers markets are applying for, which is a SNAP point of sale machine at an extremely reduced rate, so that you can start accepting SNAP benefits as well. Yes on SNAP, no on WIC and senior vouchers. Any other questions? That's it? Yes, sir. Sure. Sure. What? Yeah. So the question is, what was the impact on the ground in the communities with the people where we set up these mobile market locations? And it varied from place to place. Um, I'm thinking of two in particular that are on the west side of Bowling Green. We set up at the Boys and Girls Club, which is adjacent to the Housing Authority of Bowling Green. And then we also set up at the Foundry, a community center that's in a historically underserved community in Bowling Green. And we saw a lot more interest in and personal support from community leaders at the Foundry in this older neighborhood. Um, and I'm not 100% certain as to why. That's something that I hope some exit surveys will tell us. But they seemed a lot more invested in just fresh food access in general. I don't want to speculate on why that is. But then we see a lot of people from that community come to our original market location, bringing with them so they can take advantage of double dollars. And that was one of the things I wanted to mention but didn't. This point of sale machine, this iPhone, we can take it to these locations and accept SNAP and provide double dollars at these locations. And the way that we instituted the program is they can do it any day of the week during market hours. So they would come on a Wednesday, get the maximum benefit of their double dollars, and then they would come back on a Saturday and get the full benefit of their double dollars as well. Again, prefacing this with it's just the right thing to do. This is a great way to advertise to people who aren't on social media, who don't regularly read the news, who aren't really accessed by a lot of advertising that we do on the radio or on TV. So when this bus rolls through the neighborhood, they ask, well, what is this? Where are you all located? Why are you providing? What are you providing here? That was a way to send the message to them that we provide this service. Here we are. And then here's where you can take full advantage of it. Yes. Sure. Yeah. So she asked mechanically, how does the SNAP program and the SNAP redemption work? So you have a point of sale machine, and when that card is run, this is what they were saying, you have to have a bank account. Our particular market created a separate outreach bank account. So I was given authority by our founding farmers to create an outreach bank account to actually set up our outreach efforts as a nonprofit. So I'm sort of a separate arm, a nonprofit arm of this market. And we did this for several reasons, one of which I had my bank account for our outreach efforts. All of our SNAP transactions are deposited into that account. So if they're swiped on a Saturday, first thing Monday morning, I can guarantee those funds are in there. And then I have I use a token system the same way that CFA does and dispense those tokens. So whenever they swipe for $20, we give them $40 in tokens. And then they can spend those like cash on SNAP-approved items at the market. Takes a little bit of education on the part of you and the farmers, letting them know these are the tokens, these are what they're good for. Craft vendors cannot accept those tokens, telling them as well, these are for food items only. Also for seeds and food-bearing plants. Not a lot of people knew that going into it last year. That was something that I learned. Yes, another question?
So there's two questions, and they're sort of related, but do the vouchers only work for fresh produce, or can they also be used to purchase eggs or processed items like canned goods? And kind of related, do SNAP participants get the double dollars from spending SNAP money on any items, or does it have to be produce only? And does the produce they redeem the dollars for have to be local?
No, I know several people in here know the answers to. So the vouchers can only be used on produce. The WIC vouchers has to be fresh produce, a plant. That's the senior vouchers. So the senior vouchers can be used for the same sets of produce as well as honey. So honey's not on the WIC program. It is on the senior program. And with SNAP, it just has to be any food item. If you can eat it, it's a SNAP eligible good, except for food that's served hot and ready to eat. So if you have a vendor that's doing prepared lunch plates, that's not a SNAP eligible item. If they serve barbecue in a container to go, that is a SNAP eligible item. So with some vendors, you have to know in advance what they sell and be able to approach them in that way. You can sell this, you can't sell this. I've even gone as far as to make memos to give to certain producers to say, when you get a WIC voucher, here are the things it's eligible for, here's how the transaction works. When you accept a senior voucher, when you accept tokens, we have a more intricate token system than I would like, because we also accept other benefits like Big Red Dollars from our local college. So that's a completely separate token that can be spent on anything at the market. So there's a lot of education that has to go on, and I try and give them something that they can easily reference in case they're put into that situation. 1s and 5s. Don't order the same amount of each. We learned that one. So order far more 1s than 5s. It just makes it simpler. Yeah, they can come back and just like cash, they can bust a 5 for 1s. Now they cannot get cash change from farmers to make up the difference. What a lot of my farmers have started doing is keeping a handful of 1s in their box, so that if they get handed a $5 token and buy $4 worth of produce, they give them back a $1 token. I didn't even think of that. They surprised me with that one. So that's one thing that they do to help me out. Any other questions?
Thank you, Jackson and Valerie, for that. And so I'm going to turn it over to Noah Fulmer with Fair Food Network. I really appreciate him coming down from Michigan to be with us. Do you need to get your PowerPoint up and go?
While I'm setting that up, do you want to do a round of introductions with the microphone?
Yeah, let's just pass it around here.
Hi, I'm Billy Fry with Alltech, and I arrived late. Sorry, I'm coming from Lexington, but we're very interested in what you guys are doing, particularly in Eastern Kentucky. So.
Hi, I'm Sarah McKinney with WellCare Health Plans. I'm Elaine Russell with the Kentucky Department for Public Health with the Obesity Prevention Program, and we have a CDC grant to support farmers markets and increase nutrition benefits in farmers markets.
Alita Botts with the Kentucky Center for Agriculture and Rural Development, and we're working to try to help people navigate the grant process for this and many other grant programs.
Hi, I'm Kathy Gallagher. I'm with the Kentucky Department of Education Summer Food Service Program, and we're the state agency that manages this federal program.
I'm Caroline Durr, and I'm with UK's Extension Service with our Nutrition Education Program here in Louisville.
I'm Beverly Sauchi, and I'm with the WIC Farmers Market Program.
Jackson Rolette, you just heard me ramble on. Community Farmers Market in Bowling Green, Kentucky.
Also, Valerie Horn, Letcher County.
Hello, I'm Debbie Barnes with the Winchester Clark County Farmers Market in Winchester, Kentucky, and Molly and I are two of the people here that actually have dirt under our fingernails.
Amen. Molly Stotts from Winchester here with Debbie, and we're both farmers in Clark County. Real interested in getting involved in these programs.
John Wyatt, Boyle County Farmers Market Manager in Danville, Kentucky.
Julie Pease, Boyle County Farmers Market customer.
So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you again for coming today. And it's exciting to be here. I had a chance to explore Louisville a little bit yesterday. I hadn't been around town, and so it's just been really nice. Even just with the cold weather, I know it would be colder in Michigan, so I'm just grateful. There's sun now. So I wanted to take a few moments today to talk about Double Up Food Bucks, which is a program of Fair Food Network, and a little bit of the context for how the program started and began with, just a couple of markets, expanded to a statewide network with lots of partnerships along the way that have enabled it to be a model that is scaling up or is able to be replicated in other places. And so what Fair Food Network is really about is developing models on the ground in communities where we test them and refine them over the first couple of years, and then get them to a place where they're designed for replicability, have strong evaluation behind the way that the program is designed, and then support the replication of those programs in other places as it makes sense for communities to implement, as well as inform policymakers in the directions that would be supportive of creating these programs. And these programs are particularly aligned around healthy food access and farm viability and economic development, health, all of those pieces. So we really look at it from two sides in terms of the food marketplace, where we're trying to build supply for fresh, healthy food in communities across the country, and we're also trying to build demand for that fresh, healthy food grown locally, and see where we can create programs that kind of are in that sweet spot in the middle. So that gets us to, that's a little bit about, I think we're running behind schedule, but that's okay. That got us in 2009 to really thinking about, what were the issues that were limiting, especially low-income consumers shopping at farmers markets and shopping for more fresh fruits and vegetables. And so we asked, and people gave a pretty long list of reasons, and you can imagine what some of them are. People have limited access to transportation in some cases. There's unfamiliarity with some of the produce at the farmers markets. There's maybe not the right kitchen equipment at home, not enough time to cook at home, those sorts of things. But out of all the reasons that people were listing, the number one reason that we came out of this survey with was affordability. And we saw at the time that it wasn't really being addressed head on, that there were lots of amazing partners in the communities that we saw across Michigan that were working on nutrition education. And there were lots of great partners working on transportation for seniors and other folks. But the affordability piece was like, this big elephant in the room. How do we address that? And how do we particularly address it at a point of sale at a farmer's market where there's incredible bounty of fresh, healthy foods? That's what farmers markets shine for. And so Double Up Food Bucks was a program that was designed to really marry those ideas. And it has worked where, we've been able over the years to, I guess I should use the clicker and then I don't have to keep going back. But it's been able to work where you have this affordability made possible at the markets that then can layer in with other activities like nutrition education and other things that, again, there are really great partners that we have around the state to do. So I just wanted to go briefly through the way that Double Up Food Bucks works, and I think it's pretty similar to the Double Dollars program, and maybe with a little twist in some parts. But the basic concept is that for every dollar that a customer spends with food stamps, with SNAP at a farmer's market, they get an additional $1 to spend on fresh fruits and vegetables that are Michigan-grown fresh fruits and vegetables. There's a cap at every market in our network, and that cap is at $20 per day. And if they go to different markets over the course of the week, they can do $20 per market day. And most of the markets we work with use a token system. And there are markets that use an iPhone system. The markets that have gotten equipped with SNAP later have tended towards the newer technology. There hasn't been as much funding available for markets that already have the technology. And in some cases, we've seen that tokens are actually it's an easier to implement mechanism in some communities to actually stick with. It seems silly and ridiculous that technology wouldn't just streamline things, but for a number of reasons, and we can go into that later, there's something really nice about the tokens. For example, they're physical and you know how much money you have right there. It's not hidden in the cloud somewhere. So that's the basic design of the program. And what's nice about that program design is it's able to work in a really wide variety of settings, because Fair Food has really put an emphasis on creating a consistent structure and we do fundraising, we do evaluation, we do marketing materials for all the markets in a way that takes the administrative burden off of the individual markets and allows the markets to really focus on running good farmers markets and running, creating really strong connections in their community, and using the program in a way that doesn't have that, high overhead for the markets. And it works in a really wide variety of locations. When we started the program, it was a pilot program in Detroit in 2009. Detroit, as far as urban areas go in this country, has had it pretty hard for quite a few years now. And we were thinking, again, with this kind of experimental mindset, that if the program could work anywhere, let's see if it can work in Detroit. And the program was a huge success with the partners we had on the ground there. And so after the first year, we expanded to 15 markets. After the next year, I think we went to, it was like 50, then 75, and then up to 120 farmers markets, plus about 30 farm stands, mobile groceries, and other partners across the state. And in the process, it really expanded way outside of the Detroit metro area into other parts of Michigan that are very rural, very suburban in some areas, a nice mix of communities. There are people using SNAP in all of those communities. Michigan has a lot of farming, particularly with fruit and vegetable production. And so I think the statistic is we're the second most diverse agricultural production after California. It's a nice thing being surrounded by all those Great Lakes. You get some really nice weather in terms of farming for produce especially. And the benefit is that the markets are really, there's so many farmers who have product available to sell. And yet, with some of the poverty that we see in Detroit and in other cities in the state of Michigan, as well as in the rural areas especially, there is high need. We can connect, again, through the Double Up program, both the production, the supply side, and the demand. And so the result has been really $5 million through 2013 in additional spending at Michigan farmers markets with Michigan farmers, and about 3 million pounds of fruits and vegetables spent at those markets. So here's another scope of how it's inched up over the years, and I know we're on track to actually expand that number for 2014. So it's almost $2 million in sales. I don't think we have a chart that's in the 5-year report that I brought copies of on the back table, which if you can take a look at afterwards. But it shows the different states in the Midwest, the upper Midwest, I should say. But Michigan, the impact of having a concerted statewide effort like Double Up Food Bucks has really meant that Michigan is leaps and bounds ahead of where we see Indiana, Ohio, Illinois, and Wisconsin, which is just all of that is, there's an opportunity there to create solid programs. And there are people who are really amazing and working on the ground in all of those places too. So, it's great that the transactions are flowing and farmers are benefiting and families are benefiting. And one of the things we really like about Double Up Food Bucks is we call it a triple win, where it's a win for the farmers, it's a win for families, and it's a win for the local economy. But we always like to check ourselves and evaluate the work that we're doing to make sure that we're on track. So in asking farmers about the impact on their lives, on their businesses, we heard that 92% are selling more fruits and vegetables, 83% are making more money at the markets with Double Up Food Bucks, 99% want to participate again, 28% are actually planning to grow more produce, expanding their acreage for the next year, and 29% are diversifying the types of produce they grow, seeking out opportunities perhaps with customers that have different preferences in terms of, whether it's immigrants coming from different parts of the world or just, adapting to a broader set of customers. So that's a great thing to see. On the customer side, what we like to see is that it is having the impact that we would hope in terms of nutrition, where 93% of the customers shopping at the markets are eating more fruits and vegetables, and you have 83% saying that they're shifting their purchasing, so they're actually spending less on high-calorie, low-nutrition foods. There's also, as you have going on in Bowling Green and probably a couple of the other markets here, people who are accepting SNAP on iPhones, iPods, however the setup works. But there's an app that has been developed that there's only one that USDA has approved for accepting EBT right now, but there's actually a function on that app that can be turned on for markets that want to do double up electronically. And we have a pilot in Western Michigan with 7 markets that do double up all electronically. There's no tokens involved. And customers, when they swipe their SNAP card, they take out an amount and they accrue double up automatically through the app and can use it at any of the vendors in the farmers market. All the vendors have iPods, and the iPods are connected to a wire, like a Wi-Fi system at the market. It's a little kooky, but it actually is something that a lot of markets across the country have been surprisingly interested in implementing. We've done a couple of other electronic pilots, and the standard thing is still having one central terminal at a farmer's market, even if it's an iPhone or if it's an older device. And so then with the iPhone, you would have the swipe for SNAP and still hand out tokens potentially for double up or for SNAP itself. So actually, I meant to, I have an example of the double up tokens for anyone who hasn't seen them. Just pass them around here. So these are a different token than the SNAP tokens at the farmers markets, because the SNAP tokens, again, can be used for any SNAP eligible foods at the market. The double up tokens are just for fresh fruits and vegetables, Michigan grown, which is the case for. Actually, we do have some markets where there are wholesalers and Michigan grown, and we have systems in place to make sure that the money stays with the Michigan grown. We also have a program, and I won't go into it too much here, but there's a couple of pilots doing double up food bucks in the grocery store context. At the closest, it looks to a farmer's market, there are mobile groceries that are essentially a multiple farmers selling through one food stand that's going around, like a mobile farm stand. A farm stand could also be considered a grocery, and they can run the program very similar to how double up would run at a farmer's market, and many of them do. In the Western Michigan area, the YMCA's run a veggie van that goes around town and has had a lot of success with this, and there's also a program in Detroit. But in the grocery arena, we actually work as well with a couple of independent grocery stores in Detroit and a corporate chain in Western Michigan piloting how double up food bucks would work through the cash register. And so there's a system that's kind of gift card based in the Detroit groceries, and a different system that works electronically with loyalty cards in the Grand Rapids area, and we're expanding that next year as well. So lots of testing in that arena. It's much more complicated to implement in a grocery store than it is at a farmer's market. So what's changed the discussion in Michigan and all across the country? One of the reasons that we're having a discussion here today is because there's an opportunity that hadn't been at the table before, and that happened through the last Farm Bill, through bipartisan leadership between Michigan Senator Debbie Stabenow, who was the chair of the Senate Ag Committee, and then Representative Frank Lucas of Oklahoma, who was the chair of the House Ag Committee. And they both put in double up food bucks, the food insecurity nutrition incentive, essentially a similar program design, as something that was a must-have for the 2014 Farm Bill. It wasn't that easy along the way. But the fact that a program that was adding new funding for nutrition and for local farmers to the tune of $100 million over the next 5 years could make it through the process with a Congress that doesn't like each other, it doesn't often push through new issues, it's a lot of challenges. The fact that we could get this piece of funding in there really speaks to the way that it benefits such a diversity of stakeholders and communities. With Senator Stabenow, she could turn to the program being so strong in Michigan. With Representative Lucas, there's actually double up food bucks running at a couple of markets in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and a bunch of the farmers who sell at those markets are in Representative Lucas's district. And when it came time to discuss, this new food insecurity and nutrition incentive program, they made phone calls and were saying, this is a program that's benefiting my business. It's something that makes sense for our community. And it made sense, as again that win-win-win, where it's not just nutrition and health. It's not just local economic development. It allows people across the political spectrum to kind of get behind it, and it also, in general, is about helping families make good choices and support their local community. So it's exciting. Yeah. Oh yeah. And we'll talk much more about Feeney I think later.
So they're about implementing double up food bucks program.
Sure.
Tips do you have on it? And then SNAP participants who shop at double up food bucks participating grocery stores have to spend SNAP money on produce only to receive the double up voucher. And then is a double up voucher only for one $10 purchase, or can participants get change or have to spend $1?
Yeah, there's a couple of things in there. So at the farmers market, it's not, well, it's a little bit different than it is at the grocery store. And as one of the big challenges in terms of double up at a grocery store is, if you think about the different shopping experiences that people have at the farmers market versus the grocery store. At the farmers market, there's like a lot of interaction that you're going to have over the course of the farmers market. There's someone there who you could probably ask a question about the program to at whether it's the market manager table or even the individual growers. And the grocery store, there's much less interactivity built in. At the farmers market, people are usually getting their tokens up front before they do their purchasing. At the grocery store, you get everything and then you go to a checkout line. And so if you weren't aware of the program in the beginning, it's a little bit of a surprise when you get to the checkout and, there's something, everything gets doubled. So in the grocery store, it's really a question of how do you introduce this idea to people who grocery store shopping is for communities that have grocery stores, it's very routine. It's the chore you do every week, maybe a couple of times a week. You're not thinking outside the box in the context of that. And so to get people to realize that there's this other program, I think is much more work than in the farmers market, where people are they're expecting something unexpected and expecting, it's just a little bit different. So in the grocery store context, I think it's, thinking about how to design a program where people can be aware of it up front going into the grocery store and then figure out what they're going to budget in the produce section. The way it works right now, people spend, in the case of the Detroit grocery stores, you spend $10 on produce and any produce in the store, and then you get a $10 gift card that is essentially a double up food bucks gift card that's only valid for $10 more of Michigan produce at the grocery store. You don't have to use it in the same purchase. That's the cap per day is $10 in the grocery store because they're open 7 days a week. And so you could easily run out of money if people have a higher cap. So in the Grand Rapids stores, it's $1 for $1 accrual on someone's loyalty card. And again, you don't have to spend it all on the same day. But customers often don't know. The question with a lot of the incentives is, do people know that there's an incentive? There's a lot of temptation at the grocery store to just put it as an automatic trend, take 50% off at the cash register. But what happens then? Is it really an incentive if you have customers who could go through the entire process, shop for the food, and they might not even realize that, or maybe they see the discount and they're like, that's great. I have no idea why I got a discount. And there's no, even you can put information on the receipt. I mean, there's so many ways that you can lose people in that. And so that's where I was getting to, sometimes tokens are just amazing, they work better than the electronic system. And that's because as you streamline this, there's also this question of, do people realize what's happening and what they would do to have it happen again? So.
What is the cost to the market?
Sure. So there's a program right now called MarketLink, and we talked about this before, and it may or may not be a good fit for a farmer's market. But basically, you need, in order to accept SNAP at the farmer's market, you either need a dedicated machine, similar to one that is like a mobile credit card processing machine, but one that accepts EBT. Or there are iPhones that can now do it. With an iPhone, you would need a receipt printer for the customer. Most of these dedicated machines, which are the MarketLink program is iPhone only, but the dedicated machines come with a receipt printer built in for the most part. And so you would need the machine, I don't know, probably costs $600 or $700. It's like the same price as an iPhone. The iPhone through MarketLink is free with the receipt printer and with reduced fees, if any fee. It's a little confusing, but you sign a contract with the processor for EBT, and then they essentially cover the fees for a year or two. It's all changing in like 3 months, but over the course of the first 3 years. Okay. Okay. Yeah, so basically USDA had funding available to equip markets across the country with EBT machines. That was $4 million, and they wanted to at first implement it through state SNAP agencies, and that didn't go as well as they had hoped because often the state SNAP agencies didn't have the direct links with the farmers markets, and so a lot of the money didn't get spent. So it went back to USDA, and USDA put out a bid for a contract, which MarketLink got. So MarketLink got this contract to kind of go around any of the agency places and have any farmer's market across the country directly apply to MarketLink. MarketLink equips them with the iPhone, the app, the receipt printer. MarketLink's contract is over at the end of this year, and so USDA is figuring out what the next iteration of this looks like, because I think there's funding available for continuing this program. There's also markets that have been ineligible to work with MarketLink because the restriction was it had to be a new market that hadn't accepted EBT before. And so there's a lot of markets out there with dinosaur equipment that maybe the battery doesn't work very well, maybe it just doesn't work very well in general, and would love to upgrade to an iPhone or whatever the new technology is, but won't be able to do so until 2015. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you have an FNS number, is what you got an FNS number? Yep. Okay. Well, so the question was, what do you need to do once you have an FNS number to get the equipment? And I think, CFA is working on SNAP acceptance at farmers markets right now. Here, is that part of the scope of what you're doing? Okay. So.
Yes, CFA has been providing technical assistance for that and working with Kentucky Department of Ag to make that happen. So, I personally am not much help. You can talk to Jackson after today. We will be bringing on a new person to replace Jackson. So that help will be coming.
Just from my experience working both before MarketLink arrived and after MarketLink arrived, there are still several steps in the process, and part of that is being in touch with JP Morgan. Part of that is being in touch with some of the facilitators at MarketLink and Novodia. Now that process may even be more streamlined than when I went through it. Yep. So yeah, that's something that we can provide some assistance for once you've reached that point where you have an FNS number but haven't received that machine yet.
Are there other questions, Martin? Okay. Yeah. I have a question. Before I ask this question, there's another question. Is it the case that is CFA going to have the Fair Food Network sort of Well, so Fair Food Network doesn't run double up programs in other states. We work with groups that are on the ground to, build whatever capacity makes sense to provide templates and tools that we've developed for our own markets as templates that could be used in other places, so that, some of the stuff like agreements between vendors and the markets, that the vendors are going to respect what the tokens are for. Things like those letters that you don't need to really spend that much time recreating them. We've done that already. It's not rocket science. So those sorts of things and other, questions that come up around, again, building the capacity of some of the statewide partners to do training with markets, training with other partners. That's the role that Fair Food would play. Yeah. Oh, fun. Okay. Oh yeah, rarefied. You have to use two hands. Yeah, no, it's fun. It's fun. I was actually surprised I didn't break out the hands to show where things were happening. But the UP it's the upper hand. There's the good diagram. Cool. Okay. So the second half of the presentation is really about the statewide partnership networks that are built and the roles that the different partners play in terms of what we've seen work effectively in Michigan and what we have extrapolated back as from those specific partners. So really critical partner in the development of Double Up Food Bucks has been the Michigan Farmers Market Association, which is a statewide organization that works with all the markets that they can in the state and really has led the way on getting SNAP accepted at more markets, equipping more markets with EBT, and really does the day-to-day technical assistance with market managers as questions come up, because they're already in touch with all of these markets. So it doesn't make sense for another organization to kind of step in between and be duplicating that effort if you already have a strong on-the-ground lead. Or not even on the ground, but someone, if you already have to pick up the phone for something else, you might as well throw this into the mix. And so that's what's neat when we were talking about the Farmers Market Support Program, that there is already, CFA has a lot of that infrastructure in terms of being in regular contact with many of the markets in the state. And I know, is working with a couple of others even outside of the Farmers Market Support Program. So yeah, that's exciting that you do have that important piece together. And I know that there are others that are working on double up like programs in the state. And I think one question is, how do different groups that want to make this happen collaborate? And so that's where we'll get to next in terms of the list of partners. And this is just a short list. If you look at the 5-year glossy report, again, that I referenced before, the second to last set of pages really goes into the long list of partners that have made the program a success in Michigan. But it's a mix of partners that do have that regional scope, like the Department of Human Services, which is our SNAP agency in the state, the Department of Community Health, which is doing targeted mailings for us, particularly around pilots in the Grand Rapids, Western Michigan area. But it's, they have the ability to do those targeted mailings in a way that we could never do, that the Farmers Market Association could never do. The Michigan Nutrition Network is the SNAP Ed agency for the state of Michigan, and they've been great integrating Double Up Food Bucks into the marketing campaigns. Actually, I have one of my favorite pieces that they put out, and if Martin could open that. The plastic is a little tricky, but they do bus ads and billboards about. The campaign says, "Eat more fruits and vegetables, and they will too," and it shows a parent with a child, and so let's see. And it's just a nice, simple message that they're already putting out across the state, and they're layering in Double Up Food Bucks as a way to leverage that even further. Detroit Eastern Market is the largest farmers market in the state of Michigan, probably gets about 40,000 people on a Saturday. It's many, many city blocks deep, and they have a lot of capacity as far as farmers markets go, and so they were one of the first markets we worked with in 2009. And as we've tried to innovate around the program and add in some of those other programming, cooking demos or other like trying out transportation to the market, those sorts of services, they've had the capacity to work with us on some of that kind of that experimenting and really help the program refine over the years. So the Michigan Land Use Institute is another great partner, and it's an example of, Fair Food Network is based on the outskirts of the Detroit metro area where most of the people in the state live, and we are able to serve a lot of the more rural markets in northwestern Michigan, not the Upper Peninsula, because that's not northern Michigan. It's more north than northern Michigan, as people in Michigan would describe it. So the Michigan Land Use Institute has really good food systems activity in that northwestern corner, great relationships with the markets, and just, again, allows us to expand our reach even though we're not on the ground in northwestern Michigan. And the Food Policy Council for bringing all these ideas to a larger kind of discussion across the state. And the food banks are well positioned in that they are already in contact with many of the customers that we're trying to reach through the Double Up program. And so those networks are able to, we can leverage communications resources, and they see it as an asset to their discussions with clients every day. So what's nice, again, about the way that this all comes together is because there's a uniform program and because it's centrally coordinated across all these partnerships, it's easy to implement on the local level. And really, we break it down in that way where there are those strong statewide partners who focus on the program design, on the communications, on the evaluation. Fair Food Network, I should say, because I haven't really mentioned or specified our role, we lead all of the fundraising efforts for markets across the state. So we provide a pool of funding so that markets aren't individually going after statewide funders and all coming at them with the same pitches, and the funders are like, what's going on? Why don't you all work together? So we do those asks, and we create enough of a pool where the markets, see that when they apply, every year they apply to be part of the Double Up program, and once they're accepted in the program, we'll guarantee them that from that pool we've budgeted well enough so that they will have the funding they need to get through that market season, which has been 4 months, and we're now expanding it to 5 months of every year and going year-round at year-round markets. So what we do for budgeting, basically, we give them a grant at the beginning of the season for what we estimate they'll need for the SNAP purchases, and then we leave a buffer in the pool, about like 20% of our total budget, to then reallocate to markets that are doing so well that they've run out of funds. And so midway through the season, we're checking in with them, like, how's it going? Do you need more money? And if they haven't used all the money at the end of the season, they write a check back to us, and it goes into the pool for next year. So having, the fundraising and the financial controls all in one centralized place is pretty nice when it comes to the local markets. Having the evaluation is also something that Fair Food Network takes the lead on. Communications materials we develop and then disseminate through partners like SNAP-Ed or through the food banks. And so those sorts of things have been helpful to have those, the various roles, both statewide and local. And then as the program has developed, there are some pretty exciting partnerships that happen with group like the Detroit Lions, where it's a NFL team that is popular with almost, their record isn't that great, but everyone loves them. And so when they come down to Eastern Market on a Tuesday for like cooking demos, a meet up and eat up, and kids come from like in an after school program and they meet up with the Lions, and they're just in awe because their like favorite heroes are right there in front of them eating fresh fruits and vegetables, and like they'll do anything that is asked of them at that moment. They also, at that same time do activities like running around the market, buying produce that they're learning about and asking fun questions to the farmers like, but is this Michigan grown? And the farmer's like, yes, it is. And anyway, it's very cute. But there's a way to reach an audience that is just really, a widespread audience that wouldn't otherwise necessarily be engaged through some of the other partners. It wasn't a partner we started with on day one, but it's been a really amazing partnership going forward. Henry Ford Health System has provided transportation services for seniors to get to Eastern Market. And then I think it's neat with some of, looking at the different corporations that might be based in a place, they can play a lot of roles. Some of the time they're playing a role as funders. Other times there's something really interesting about the ways that employees can get engaged, that companies can get engaged. Wellness is a really important issue for any large company, and so definitely using them, trying to leverage that in ways it's just sometimes surprising where conversations can go. We didn't expect that we would be partnering with the Lions either. So here are the 5 different areas that we've kind of outlined as the important things that need to happen on a statewide level that hopefully then, again, alleviate the need for individual markets to spend much time on developing outreach and marketing materials, for example, because you have something that you can hand them. And so I wanted to also just share what some of the materials look like. And I don't have enough copies of everything besides the stickers and this. There's like a peel pad. But so we have posters that get sent out to the markets, and farmers can put those posters up at their tables. They wind up in different agencies like food banks, schools. There's also a set of materials, both for price cards and also a general Double Up Food Bucks Accepted Here that winds up at the markets to raise awareness among customers. And then for each region in the state of Michigan, and again, there's 150 different participating sites, we have this peel pad that is a double-sided information flyer that says on one side how the program works, and we're working to simplify this still, and then on the other side a list of farmers markets in the counties that are around where they live. So that's a collateral that we have usually copies of in Spanish at some of the markets, and we also have a pretty significant Arabic-speaking population around Detroit, and so we have like different material. I think it's Arabic, Russian, and Mandarin are the other languages that we have materials in. So yeah, that's the other nice thing about having a statewide effort around outreach is like none of the individual markets would have the capacity to do translations like that so consistently across materials. But when we centralize some of that effort, then they can all benefit from it. So yeah, these are the types of outreach and the examples, some of which are making them around the table. We've done billboards before. I don't know, we'll see if we have a funny little, anyway, I'll get to that slide later. The website that we have has been very helpful in terms of mapping out locations where people can use it and also getting the word out to, even if it's not a SNAP customer using the website, you have people working at schools or agencies or people who know SNAP customers who can use it as a resource. Facebook ads have been interesting, and we have a 800 number hotline that people can call with questions about where the nearest Double Up Food Bucks location is for them. And that the number doesn't ring off the hook, but it is enough where we have a couple of calls every day, and it's nice that it's just in the office. Whoever's by the phone picks it up. And I've heard some other states have integrated it into 211. Other states are maybe pairing it into other SNAP Ed activity. It depends on what capacity there already is in the state, but the phone is still a pretty important way for people to find out information. And yeah, so in terms of the partners that make Double Up Food Bucks a success, here's just a sense of, between schools and churches and all the different folks we work with, most by number of our partners are the biggest number of the participating sites themselves, but it's quite a diversity of types of organizations that are engaged in getting the word out. So I've talked a lot about what it looks like in Michigan and how it's scaled up from, again, it started with 5 markets 5 years ago. And I think what's really interesting is you have a pilot program that's been running at a couple of markets in Eastern Kentucky and Bowling Green, and I'm not sure, but I'm guessing there might be a couple of other markets that are piloting this or trying it out on their own in other corners, whether it's Lexington or in the city of Louisville. And so, a question is, what does the cast of characters look like here in Kentucky for designing a program that has long-term success, that has that kind of regional collaboration, if possible, and who would play some of the different roles and be a partner at the table? And especially, as the conversation converges towards the Feeney opportunity, it's going to, it will be helpful to kind of get a sense of who those potential partners are, because they'll have to be on paper for some of the applications that are due. And you don't have to do everything. You don't have to be at 150 different farmers markets next year. There aren't even 150 farmers markets to be at, but you don't have to be a full size in 1 year. It's something that can scale up, and you can see what's working and what's not, and refine it from there. And I think that's another key to the long-term sustainability. So, next year is just a starting point. Martin and I were talking today about whether, if there were 20 markets that had SNAP acceptance across the state, and I think there were around 30, but if there were 20 that were like, yes, we have SNAP, and yes, we're ready to try out a double up style program, like would that, could that be what the first year of a Feeney grant looks like, where markets that, some of which might be already part of the Farmers Market Support Program network, and others that might be, I don't know, in Louisville or places where there might not be an umbrella organization that, or they might not have the capacity to write their own Feeney grant. Could they just be part of, a network of markets that was implementing the program and share in the communications materials and the evaluation, and which would then reinforce, it would be easier for food banks to do their outreach if there's a consistent program happening in different corners of the state as well. So the consistency helps in that way. And that's it. Okay. Thank you. I don't know if there are questions too. Oh, good. Silence. Any questions in the room, or?
Okay. You want to take a break and then
Sounds good.
take a break and we'll talk about the actual grant.
Yeah, so we'll take how long, or when do you want to return? I don't,
Come back 2:45. Let's pick this back up at 3 o'clock.
okay, so 3 o'clock we will be back, and we'll talk a little bit more about Feeney. Thanks.